Good morning and welcome back to Football League World TV. Final show of the week on the channel, which means it's time for the AFL weekend preview where we're going to be running across all three divisions and picking out the pick of the action. I'm your host, Alfie Burns, and I'm delighted to be joined by my two colleagues, George Dagless and Billy Mulley, returning from some annual leave as well. Dags, how are you getting on this morning?
Yeah, I'm very well, Alfie. It's been a warm week, I think it's safe to say, but other than that, I'm very well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, mate. All good. Very warm, but yeah, I'm not going to complain about that. Billy, how are you? Good break?
Yeah, good break. It's hard to keep your eye off EFL action even when you're away. So yeah, I've tried to keep up the best I can, and hopefully, it proves to be worthwhile in today's show.
Absolutely. We're streaming across Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter this morning. So anybody joining us want to get involved in the comments, please do. It'd be great to hear your score predictions for the games we're talking about, and let us know if you're getting out to a AFL game this weekend. We'll look to get those up on the show. As we always do, we're kickstarting things with the Championship, and we're going to start by looking at Luton Town versus Preston North End this weekend at Kenilworth Road. 2 draws apiece for this pair in the Championship so far, and it's safe to say that they've struggled for goals. We'll start with the away side, though. They've struggled for goals in the Championship, Preston, but they were on fire midweek in the League Cup, beating Huddersfield Town 4-1. I'll start with you, Dags. Hammering at Huddersfield for Preston. Got to take plenty of confidence out of that into this game.
Yeah, definitely. Like you say, Preston have been pretty goal shy so far this year in the league, at least. But that result showed that they do know where the net is. I quite like the sort of lineup that Ryan Lowe put out. There's lots of dynamic players in that side, and potentially it's a little plan or blueprint that he can use going forwards. Obviously, Huddersfield haven't had the start of the season they would have liked. I think it's fair to say, but you can only beat what's put in front of you, and Preston very much did the job on Huddersfield in the week. And I think we were saying just before we come on the show that a lot of sides in the Championship sort of bowed out of the League Cup against lower league opposition, but obviously Preston playing a Championship side can take plenty of confidence from that result. And I would expect that there'll be a side probably quite similar to the one that played against the Terriers that plays against Luton this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. A few selection headaches definitely for Ryan Lowe heading into this one. I think he made 6 changes on Tuesday night, but a performance and a result like that does give him food for thought after 2 draws in the Championship. Billy, you are our resident Luton fan. What's been your thoughts on the start to the season for Nathan Jones' side?
Yeah, it's a weird one. It's been a good enough start to the season. I think it's 2 very, very different games. Dominated the ball against Birmingham, playing through thirds a lot more than what we did last year, and then the Burnley game a lot more direct, dealing with the sort of sheer amount of pressure and possession that Burnley had, but at the same time didn't really look like scoring another one. So it's been a steady enough start. Jones will be viewing this as a perfect opportunity to get off the board. He's very complimentary towards Ryan Lowe, a manager that I personally think has done very well since he come into the job at Preston, building something quite slowly, but they're definitely heading in the right direction. With Luton, though, it's still a lot of new signings get embedded in. Elijah Adebayo hasn't sort of started firing as we all know he can do. I'm sure all it will take is a goal with him, but then you've got the likes of Jordan Clark, who stepped up massively, Luke Freeman as well, real creative attacking threat. I'm sure the goals will come, but I think it's similar to Preston. It's very strange at the moment why the goals haven't started with the 2 teams when you think of Luton's attacking lineup and then you think of Emil Rees and Troy Parrott. It's strange to think that the goals haven't started firing yet, especially as well looking at the wing backs as well. Of Alvaro Fernandez coming in looks a real exciting option for Preston and Luton as well, with Amari Bell continuing to put some really strong performance in. James Bree as well. His ability to cross the ball in is sort of second to none in the Championship. It's some really good creative attacking options, and Colton Morris as well, another one that's been showing a lot of promise. So I can't really put my finger on why Luton haven't started scoring, and I imagine it's a similar story for Preston North End as well.
Let's get some predictions for this game then. I'll start with you, Dags.
I don't want to annoy Billy very early in the show, but I fancy a Preston win here, actually. So I'm going to go 2-1 to Preston.
And I'll come for your prediction, Billy, but also just ask you whether you think there's a little bit of pressure on Luton to get that first win now that they're back on home soil.
Yeah, it's difficult. Again, I think there's got to be pressure on your third game if you haven't won. But at the same time, I know Luton finished in the playoffs last year, but it's not an expectation that they should be there again. So I think some fans will be a lot more tolerable if it's not a win. I'm going to, with my prediction, stay quite optimistic. I said it during the week. I'm going to go for it again, and the fact that we do like to beat Preston on home soil. So I'll go for a 2-0 Luton victory.
Good stuff. There's some cracking games in the Championship on Sunday, ones that really catch the eye. We'll move on to those now. Middlesbrough versus Sheffield United on Sunday. A game that draws your attention because of Chris Wilder. You won't want it to all be about him, but somehow it always is whenever he's facing Sheffield United, where he had so much success. Last season, the Blades absolutely hammered Wilder's Borough side at Bramall Lane. Safe to say that a proud man like Chris Wilder is going to want some revenge this weekend, Dags.
Yeah, certainly is. He obviously has a lot of affection for Sheffield United, but at the same time, he is a very competitive man and he will want 3 points, especially given the way Middlesbrough have started this season as well. It's obviously not been a particularly auspicious start for them in the Championship, has it? Just a 1 point from their opening 2 games in the league. Middlesbrough, for many, were perhaps promotion favourites going into this season. So whilst you can't obviously write them off after 2 games, you will want to show that they are very much in the mix this season for the race to the Premier League. And what better way to do it against the Sheffield United side that again many tip to be there or thereabouts, but they've perhaps not had as quick a start as they would like. They've obviously got 1 win on the board, but potentially they'd like to have a little bit more than 3 points after 2 games, or maybe I'm being a little bit harsh there, but I think the expectations are obviously massive at both clubs for this season, based on how last year ended for them. So I think it's going to be a game that obviously could be quite hard to call when we get to it in a moment, and probably will come down to the odd goal.
Yeah, just on what you sort of brushed over there, Dags, I'll put this question to you, Billy. These are 2 sides that we did expect to be at the sharp end of the table. Obviously, we're only 2 games in, so there's a long way to go. But looking at the 2 squads, who do you think's better equipped for a real push at that top 2?
Yeah, again, it's very difficult at this stage of the season, especially with the transfer window still open, and both clubs perhaps looking to add and bolster that squad even more. But I think Sheffield United, I think at the moment, are probably better equipped for the season. I think in terms of being a well-rounded squad, I think Middlesbrough still need to add forward options. I think that's what's not letting them down at the moment, because they've got Marcus Forss there. Duncan Watmore's proved to be lively in this division over the last few years, but I still think they need that sort of number 9 to come in and do a real job there to sort of fully solidify all around the squad. Sheffield United, though, I think that they're closer to achieving that. We've got some real exciting creative players. Redick Kadra coming in, very, very exciting. McAtee as well. I'm sure will add sort of that attacking guile, or even Tommy Doyle. Ryan Brewster coming back to fitness as well will be a big help. Iliman Adai, if he adds that sort of clinical touch to his game, I'm sure he's going to be a top player this season. So I think at the moment, Sheffield United are probably a little bit better equipped, but the fact that he's coming at the Riverside Stadium, I think this would lead me towards Middlesbrough a little bit more.
Yeah, we've had a comment in from Wayne. He's backing a Middlesbrough victory. I'll get your predictions now. Billy, I'll let you go first this time.
I'm going to go for a very, very closely competed game. I'll go for 2-1 to Borough, though.
Dags?
I'm going to go 2-1 the other way. I think Billy makes a good point that Sheffield United are closer to being the finished article compared to Borough. I think Wilder said earlier this week that he still ideally wants to sign a few players to come in and compete for the first team, which obviously suggests that he's not quite happy with where the side is at the moment. So that all said, I think I'll go for a Sheffield United away win, and 2-1.
Elsewhere in the Championship on Sunday, it's Blackburn versus West Brom. Blackburn are sitting at top of the table heading into the weekend after a perfect start under John Dahl Thomason. This, though, is probably their biggest test of the season so far. Would you agree, Billy?
Yeah, it has to be. As you say, really impressive start. I think going into the season, not many people knew what to expect from Thomason coming in as a bit of an unknown entity. But it's been positive football, bright attacking play, getting the best out of some players that maybe last season didn't hit their full potentials. I think Lewis Travis, the way he started, not just the goals, but in terms of his overall performance, has been really pleasing to see. They've added Sammy Schmostic, that's he has proven to be a good championship player in the past, and he would have been too good to go back into League One. So I'm glad he's found a move where he can probably play quite regularly as well when they make an impact. And as we saw, he has sort of already made an instant impact, somebody that can go on and enjoy a really good season. Ben Brereton Diaz already up and firing, which is a very good sign. Sort of a season 2 halves for him last season, and although during the second half he was putting in good performances, he wasn't really getting the goal return that we saw at the start of the campaign. So him back on the score sheet is going to be vital. And then sort of the likes of Callum Britton coming in as well. I think that's a real shrewd addition, a player that has great ability with his crossing, also has bundles of energy defensively in terms of his positioning as well. He ticks a lot of boxes. So I think at the moment, Blackburn will be positive of the start. They'll know that this West Brom test is going to be the most difficult so far. I've been really impressed with what I've seen so far from the Baggies of Steve Bruce's project once again. So yeah, a very, very tough test. And if they can come through this unscathed, I'm sure they'll have a really, really strong season, or at least build up to have a really strong season.
Let's move over to West Brom then. 2 draws on the board from 2 quite testing fixtures in the Championship. They drew with Watford on Monday night, and I think it's safe to say that they definitely deserved 3 points from that game. One concern was just how clinical they were or weren't in the final third, Dags. Do you think that's a bit of a concern at the minute, and how do they become more clinical?
Well, yes, it is a concern. I think during the game, the Sky team obviously brought up the graphics that showed how sort of inefficient they were in front of goal last season. So it's obviously a theme that's been affecting the side for quite a while, and it's one that West Brom fans will want to see change as soon as they can. Carlin Grant showed that he has got the quality in him to be clinical, because when he did score, it was obviously a great finish, and it showed as well the creativity they've got in that side with Dean Garner's lovely dinked assist. And you only have to look all over the pitch. They've got talented players that can score goals. In terms of unlocking that full potential, I guess it's just going to have to take a little bit more time. Obviously, the likes of John Swift and Jed Wallace are relatively new there now, but they're all talented players, so you expect them to gel eventually. I think West Brom fans will rightly be fairly optimistic with how it's gone so far this year. Obviously, there's still some disquiet over Steve Bruce, but ultimately, if the performances can stay where they are and they can start winning games, then that disquiet and concern over Steve Bruce will gradually dissipate. As for this game this weekend, it is obviously massively hard to call. Blackburn have been very good defensively as well so far this year, so it's obviously going to be a bit of a test for West Brom given their problems in front of goal. But I could potentially see it being quite an open game, and so maybe that will lend or play into West Brom's hands and give them maybe a bit more opportunity to make a statement themselves this weekend.
I've had another prediction in from Wayne. He's going for a West Brom win, 2-1. Let's get your predictions then. Dags, I'll start with you.
I'm going to go 2-2. I think there will be goals in this one. Blackburn have obviously showed that they've started really well under Thomason, but that game on Monday, watching West Brom, that's about as one-sided you're going to get, I think, in the Championship this year, with Watford involved as well. 2 teams are expected to be right at the top of the tree, and West Brom really should have battered Watford, for want of a better word. So I expect them to carry that performance again into this weekend against Blackburn. But yeah, like I say, Blackburn have been very good so far this year and pretty sound defensively too. So I think we're in for quite a tight affair, and it'll go 2-2. And maybe West Brom fans may be a little bit disappointed with how they've performed so far this year to only have 3 points in the opening 3 games. But like you say, Alfie, their fixture list has been pretty tough given the calibre of sides they faced. So to at least come out of it without defeat, and with 2 of those games being away from home, there are definitely positives to take from the start of this year for them.
And what about you, Billy? What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I'm going to go 1-1 draw, so sort of the same boat as Dags there. I think it's going to be 3 points from 3 games, but again, I think they might dominate possession and dominate the chances, but they might just come up a little bit short. I think Daryl DK's injury, um, very, very unfortunate for them. So yeah, I think they're going to struggle with this sort of clinical factor that we've been speaking about for quite some time. But I'm sure once they're in the rhythm, they'll start probably battering teams like they should have Watford.
Moving down into League One, then our focus switches to Ipswich Town versus MK Dons. We'll start with Ipswich, who have started fairly well in League One. They had a slip up against Colchester in the League Cup midweek. But have you been impressed by Kieran McKenna's side so far this season, Dags?
Yeah, I have. Obviously, the expectation was huge, wasn't it, at the start of the year? You know, we spoke about sides that were labelled as promotion favourites so far this season, and Ipswich were very much given that tag at the start of this year going into League One. Since he's gone in, I think he's not just changed performances on the pitch, but also brought a bit more of optimism in the fan base. And when a club like Ipswich has got those supporters on side, it's obviously a much happier place to be. And in the past, we've seen, that they've obviously been upset with managers in the past, and understandably so at times as well. So it seems like it's a much happier place to be. And with the players they've got in that squad, if you can combine that with the environment now being a lot better, you would expect them to go well this year, and so far they have. Obviously, there's still a long way to go, but you feel like that the talent they have got and the depth in that squad is good enough to bring the extra level of consistency that they needed last year. They can bring that now into this season. And it seems like McKenna's got them in a good place, and they all seem to be knowing what they're doing. It looks a bit more like they've gelled, whereas in sort of the last couple of years with their big sort of transfer hauls, and particularly under Paul Cook, where they overturned the squad quite dramatically, it did look at times a little bit disjointed. Whereas now it seems to have been fine-tuned a little bit more by McKenna. And I think the feeling was with Ipswich, whenever that happened with the players they've got, they're always going to be hard to stop. And so far, so good this year. Obviously, still plenty of obstacles to come, but the early signs are positive for Ipswich that they're going to be there or thereabouts in terms of definitely the top six, and I'd imagine in the top two conversation as well.
As for MK Dons, then, for a side that came so close to automatic promotion and then fell away in the playoffs last season, they'll be really disappointed. Despite the changes within their squad, to not have a point on the board yet, Billy, it feels quite remarkable given how good MK Dons were last season that we're sat here talking about a genuine chance that there could be 3 losses from 3 games after the end of this weekend.
Yeah, I think it was always going to be tough for MK Dons this season, losing a player like Harry Darling, how influential he was at the back, and combine that with the goals and creativity of Scott Twine. Of course, we were going to see some sort of decline. I don't think it's going to be permanent. I think they've recruited really well. They've also got an incredible sort of pipeline coming through as well. So I think this sort of downhill spike is just going to be temporary. Again, they play probably the most difficult match they'll have to play this season when they travel to Ipswich this weekend. But at the same time, sorry, I don't know which way around it was. Is it they're hosting? Sorry. So of course it's still going to be a very, very difficult game. But what we've seen with MK Dons, they've got players that have stepped up. Sort of Warren Ahora has been very good so far this season. And against Sheffield Wednesday, they actually put in quite a positive display against Cambridge the opening day of the season. It didn't sort of, it was an outlier, I believe. So I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park. I think Ipswich will have their problems. But you look at Ipswich, their sort of squad depth, their players that they do possess is really a joke for this level. But then MK Dons, you've got the likes of Matt Smith coming into play and really getting to grips. You've got Darragh Burns, who is a really, really exciting player, and then you've got the likes of Dan Kemp, who's maybe tasked with being that more creative player this season on a more consistent basis. So you've definitely got the players there at MK Dons to cause Ipswich all sorts of problems. But you look at this Ipswich squad, you look at McKenna now coming into what is his second season, and you can't help but feel that he's starting to put something together that would warrant, a top 2 finish.
Certainly feels like Wayne thinks McKenna's putting something together. He's gone quite emphatic 4-1 win for Ipswich. We'll get your predictions now. Billy, up first.
I'm going to go for 2-1 Ipswich. Probably a more spirited display from MK Dons, but I think it's going to be a difficult task ahead.
And how about you, Dags?
Yeah, I'm going to go 1-0 Ipswich. I just fancy them to have a bit more quality on the day. MK Dons have actually been, although they've lost both their games, they've been by the narrowest of margins, haven't they? So, I think it'll be a close game, and MK Dons will want to show that they can compete with Ipswich again this year. But yeah, I fancy Ipswich just to edge it.
Elsewhere in League One, Plymouth versus Peterborough United. Interestingly, these two faced each other in the League Cup. Midweek, Peterborough were 2-0 winners. Dags, are we expecting that game to have much importance on how Saturday goes between these two in League One?
Probably not a massive amount. I'd imagine there'll be quite a few changes between both sides, so that will obviously have an impact on if a similar result plays out. The way you look at it at the moment, Peterborough have started this season in brilliant form. They're scoring goals, and they're obviously, top of the tree, having won both their games. Plymouth, it's not been as plain sailing, but they're showing signs that they're going to be at least competitive this year. But yeah, having said that, I think Peterborough are probably one of those sides that if you can beat them, or if you finish above Peterborough this year, you're going to be in a very good shout of winning promotion to the Championship, because they're just one of those sides that comes down into League One and seems to immediately or pretty quickly return to the second tier. And obviously they're showing that they're threatening to do that again this season. Plymouth, obviously, at times last year looked like, promotion contenders, let alone playoff contenders, but eventually they just fell short, didn't they? And this is, I guess, a good opportunity for them to try and make a statement and show that they are going to be in the conversation this season. But yeah, we'll have to see. It is hard to look past Peterborough at the moment, just given the way that they've started the season.
Yeah, I think that this game feels like an opportunity for both, really, as you mentioned there, Dags, for Plymouth to show that they are, going to be playoff contenders again. But Peterborough sitting top of the table, Billy, it's another chance for them to lay down a real marker in the early stages of what will be quite an exciting race for automatic promotion in the division.
Yeah, like the game we just spoke about, you imagine these two teams will be there or thereabouts. Peterborough coming down from the Championship, managing to keep hold of some of their better players or more saleable assets so far. You think of Ronnie Edwards playing in League One, that's going to be a massive boost for them. And pictured there, Johnson Clark-Harris, him alongside Jack Marriott this season could be a 50-goal partnership there, or even pushing on to 60, because they are, two players that are that good, two players that should be playing in the Championship. And if they manage to retain them, then and you add this sort of quality in and around them, sort of Harrison Burrows, Ben Thompson, it's going to be quite a fruitful season in terms of the goals scored. I think last time they were promoted from League One, they scored goals for fun. You add Joe Ward's crossing ability into that as well, and it could be bundles of fun for Peterborough this season, coming into sort of the second exchange as the second half of the campaign as well, once they are fully up to gear, and even impressive signings to add to that already Championship looking squad. You look at Ben Thompson, already mentioned there, Hector Cipriano, who I'm amazed that no Championship clubs put in a bid or actually managed to secure his signing this season. I think he's going to be a top player, one of those sort of holding midfielders that oozes class, but also fulfills his defensive responsibilities as well. So there's a lot to like about Peterborough, but also Plymouth as well, that they're a very steady side. They've got some real attacking outlets. You think of Danny Mayer, that's been doing it at sort of League One, League Two level for quite some time, still putting that sort of consistency of performance in. You look at sort of Ryan Hardy as well, continuing to score goals and really hassle defenders. There's a lot to like about both teams, and that's why it's difficult to leave them out of the promotion conversation. I think both teams will like to get this game out the way quite early doors. And if any of them can come away with a win, that would be a massive statement of what can happen this season.
Let's get some predictions then, Dags.
I'll go 2-1 Peterborough. But it's one of those games where you wouldn't be surprised by any kind of result, really. I think Plymouth have more than got it in them to win this one. But I will just go with, what the table says and what the form says at this early stage. I'll go for a posh win.
And what about you, Billy?
I'm going to sit on the fence for this one. I think it's going to be 1-0. I think home park was rocking for the first home game of the season. I think that can play a big part again. Two very, very good teams. I'm sure it'll be a very competitive match. But yeah, I think the points will be shared in this one.
Finally, moving down into League Two then. The game we're going to focus on is between Walsall and Stevenage. Both have made the perfect start in League Two with 6 points from 6, but that obviously cannot continue this weekend. Billy, two sides that have had a great start to the season. Who do you feel are favourites going into this game?
I think home advantage will naturally mean that Walsall will go into this one favourites, and the fact they were so impressive on the opening day at home. They've got real good recruitment so far. I think Isaac Hutchinson's probably the standout player so far from what we've seen. A really intelligent player will add real value at League Two level. We've sort of seen that in glimpses already. But yeah, I think Stevenage as well. It's you never know what you're going to get from a Stevenage side, and that it sort of followed the trend coming into the new season. A really successful pre-season. Watched them against Peterborough and Derby, and they played really well. Didn't look out of place against top League One opposition. Started the campaign strongly as well, seeing a lot more possession than what you'd expect from a Steve Evans side, who's usually master of the dark arts. But they're playing some really good football so far. I think the fact that Elliot List is picked up an injury could be quite detrimental for sort of the immediate future, but I think one thing they've done this summer is add strength in depth. They've got now a squad that's full of League Two level quality. I think when List has come out, you've still got Jamie Reid, you've got Jordan Roberts that's obviously scoring goals as well. Adding Bostwick into the midfield and being a player that can play in defence as well. I think that's going to be massively beneficial for them. And it just seems to be working out for Stevenage at the moment. How long that will last, we don't know. Played two sides so far that imagine will be sort of in and around the sort of mid-table position. So I don't know how many conclusions you can draw, but yeah, living close to Stevenage, you can tell that fans are actually quite excited for the season ahead, and there's no reason why they shouldn't be after such a successful pre-season and opening couple of games.
Yeah, and only fueling that sort of optimism will have been a late midweek win over Reading in the League Cup, a championship scalp there for Stevenage. As we mentioned with Preston right at the top of the show, and how much confidence a win like that, despite being in a different competition, can have, Dags, it's going to only fuel the belief at Stevenage that they can certainly get a result this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. Steve Evans is a Marmite character, obviously, but he is a manager that does tend to get results, particularly at this level. And he's also shown in the past that he can take a side lower down the Football League and get them on a run in the Cup. Obviously, speaking particularly from experience in my local team, Crawley, he did that plenty of times in the past, and he's done it other clubs as well. It's almost a bit odd seeing Stevenage up at that end of the table. You wonder if the table's been put on upside down, given the way Stevenage have been going in the last few years. But ultimately, as soon as Evans arrived, and you felt as long as he keeps them up, you kind of knew that they were going to have a big summer, and then look to build on that. And that's exactly what they've done. And he's made some good changes there. But having said all of that, and yes, the optimism is there at Stevenage. I can't really look past Walsall, and I think until they embark on some massive patch of poor form, Walsall, I'm going to fancy them for pretty much every game this year, just because of Michael Flynn is obviously a very good manager, and he's gone in and made some good business. And it's a club that, when he came in, he said it's a team and club that should be higher up the Football League, and I think he's generally starting to instill that belief, not just in the players, but in the entire football club and the supporters as well. I think that kind of belief is, pretty effective at League Two level when there's kind of small margins between all 24 clubs. I'm not surprised to have seen the start that Walsall have made, and I think they're going to be very hard to stop this year as well. Obviously, I'm blowing them up big time after 2 games. There's still a lot of matches to go, but yeah, despite Stevenage having an impressive start, Stevenage are a team I can see being in the top 7 mix. Walsall are a team that I would be surprised if they're outside the top 3 come the end of the year. And so, having said all that, I will probably back the Saddlers when we get to the predictions in a minute.
Well, we'll come straight to that then, Dags. I'll come to you first. I think I know which way you're going.
Yeah, Stevenage. No, I'm going to go for Walsall. I've kind of bigged them up a lot there. So yeah, I will back the Saddlers. I think Stevenage will obviously run them close because they've made a good start, and there's plenty of belief there, and they want to show that they can mix it with a team that is touted to be one of the favourites in League Two. Steve Evans has got obviously a habit of getting these kind of results, but yeah, I can't really look past Walsall at the moment, so I'll go 3-2 to the team from the Midlands.
What about you, Billy?
I'm just going to go 2-1 Stevenage. I think, of course, Walsall had that opening day triumph 4-0, looked brilliant, and I think that justifies Dags' top 3 belief. But I think that the second game of the season, it wasn't as productive. They scraped by, I think, against a Newport side that maybe will be around the sort of mid-table region come the end of the season. They struggled to really assert their dominance. I don't think they recorded a shot on target, even though they managed to win one of those kind of strange games. I don't think that it's not discrediting Walsall. It's more from what I've seen of Stevenage so far in pre-season and the opening 2 games. But yeah, I think it's an exciting time for Stevenage, and rightly so. They're playing good football, but they're also knowing when to go a bit more direct and sort of play Steve Evans' way as we've seen in recent years. But yeah, 2-1 Stevenage. I think it'll be another really competitive game, and one that maybe we can start drawing a few conclusions after it.
That concludes our look at the EFL this coming weekend. Thanks to Dags and Billy for their opinions and predictions. Thanks to anybody else that's joined us across Facebook, YouTube and Twitter, and especially those that have got themselves in the comments. They haven't gone unnoticed. Plenty coming up on the channel next week, so please do make sure that you tune in back in. Plenty of football to be played, so we'll be discussing a whole manner of things. So please do get back on board with us. But until then, take care and have a good weekend.